Hey everybody, just doing my usual Sunday check-in. Let's see what happened today. I got to church early today, and I shared with Pastor the thing that I read to you guys yesterday, on the advice of, my one friend. He liked it a lot. He asked, if I could give him a printed copy, to share with some other people that were, in a program for, things like that. I said absolutely. So I got it set up to be printed out on Tuesday so I can take it with me to Bible study this week so I can give it to him. And let me tell you again, I spent over an hour fighting with this laptop here, just trying to get everything in order. Like, there's definitely something trying to stop me from sharing, like, specifically that message. But got through it, made it work. So, mostly normal day. Still trying to work out some bugs with the sound system where I've been doing the sound guy. Nothing too major. Like today, I experimented. I tried a different. Last week, I put the lapel mic like around here, and for the most part, it was okay. But whenever he turned his head a certain way, you would hear the fabric of his shirt rustle through the system, and if he turned his head that way, it would get really loud. So I tried to do like more as close to center as I could up higher. And I did notice when I did that this week, yes, it was easier to make it sound like louder, but the catch of that is it creates more. The louder it is, the more feedback loop there is. So I got to keep adjusting so there's not, that whine or squeal in the sound. But again, it's all trial and error. The more I do it, the easier it'll get. I really should. I was thinking about this earlier this morning. Oh, excuse me. I really do got to start keeping a running tally of how many times we've used it, because the batteries are supposed to last so many hours, and it's used an hour at a time. So I want to keep track of that. So we're not like in the middle of a service one day and all of a sudden it cuts out because the battery died. Like, that would be not good. So I need to find, a paper, some way I can keep track of it there. I do have a spare mini chalkboard that I used for scoring a game that I used to play, on a couple of sticks of chalk, so I could do that, like mark each time we use it, and then when I get up to so many, like, I can't remember if it was 8 or 10 hours, but it should be the safe. It was actually more than that, but that's when I would say it was safe, to swap things out. So again, just ideas I'm throwing around. I was talking with some of the other folks from church today about being excited. My classes start March 2nd, and today is February 15th, so I've got a couple weeks, and then the light classes will start, and that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sessions. Not bad. 2 hours apiece. And it's all through Zoom, so I don't have to physically be anywhere. Or I have the book. I've already started reading it. I want to start getting some of the actual work in it done. That way I'm ready to go when the classes start. Again, I've been trying to... I was thinking about this earlier today. I was upset before about things with my, repeating past cycles, but it ended up doing me a favor because it disconnected me from something that would have distracted me. Not just the ex herself, but things that went with that relationship. Kind of cleared my distraction meter. Not completely. Again, with the ADHD, I love to be distracted. That's call a spade. Let's be honest about it. That's accountability. But this is what I want to focus on. So it makes it easier. I've been spending a lot of time here at my writing desk. It's actually where I've spent the bulk of my time the last couple weeks, with weather being what it was and it being cold, and this is what I would rather be doing. So we'll see. I'm really getting into it, especially now that I've started to do like more and more and more writing, and I'm getting positive feedback on it, and that kind of pushes me even more to kind of open up and approach things a little differently. Speaking of which, you guys know me, I love to give perspective. I had a funny thought, because today the weather was finally nice, that I walked to and from church. Again, for the heart, I got to get the exercise, and this was and it was beautiful today. Perfect weather for walking. Wasn't too hot, wasn't too cold. But on the walk home, alone with my thoughts. Excuse me. I had a realization. I say all the time, people don't understand the Bible for what it is. It's not a rule book. It's a guidebook. It's like the manufacturer's owner's manual. You know what I mean? If you want to figure things out, if you want to live life the right way, that's the book you read. And to further that, you know how they say that forgiveness isn't necessarily for the other person that you forgive, it's for you, because it lets you let go of things? And this thought struck me today on my walk home. What about repentance? What are your thoughts on repentance? Because I talk about it a lot. I really focus on, making things right, taking accountability. Oh, excuse me. Making changes. But what if, repentance isn't about so much pleasing God? What if it's God trying to make sure that we do right by ourselves? You know what I mean? The rules aren't necessarily for His benefit, but more for ours. I mean, don't get me wrong, obviously, God can't be around sin. So it's not just that, but, I like to take things a little deeper and look at things from different angles, and, sometimes that's the little note you need to make changes. Sorry, I didn't get a lot of sleep last night. I did a lot of tossing and turning, where the temperature's been changing. I have a heat source under the bed. I use a heating blanket, because where the temperatures were like dropping really cold, it got, temperatures would drop in the house overnight. It was bitter cold out. Well, last night, where things have been warming up, I couldn't get comfortable. I would get cold and turn it on. Then I'd wake up like an hour and a half later. I'd be overheated, so I'd have to turn it off and stick a foot out. Sleep for another hour, wake up. It was one of those nights. So it is what it is. See what I mean? I know every time I'm on here, I'm yawning. That's because, it's when I finally sit down and stop and take a rest. Otherwise, I keep moving. But yeah, today's plan for the rest of the day, or evening, I should say, get some of that work done. I got some work. I want to get a couple Bible study lessons done ahead of time, That way, while I'm in the classes for the lay speaking, I'm not trying to juggle as much. So that's, I've got a couple weeks before the classes start, so I'm going to try and do that. And same thing, like I said, I'm going to try and go ahead in the lay book also, to be a little ahead for that. The problem is, I need coffee. The problem with that is I can't go too far ahead, because then it won't be up here when it comes time to discuss it. So I can only go so far ahead. Otherwise, it kind of messes me up, and that's, to me, that's the most important part, is the discussion part, because that's when it's not only opening my eyes to other realizations, but it's sharing that with the people around me, and to me, that's more important, you know? So that's why geez, excuse me, that is the madness to my method. But again, I know I'm very neurodivergent, ADHD and a couple other issues, and I have to, over the years, I've found different ways to cope with that, so I can still, function like other people, because otherwise, I really wouldn't get much done, because I'd be moving all over the place and doing 100 things, but not a single one getting completely done before moving on to the next. That's something I've had to learn to curb over the years. And again, it's still a struggle at times. Excuse me. I really gotta get some more sleep before I make these videos. I'm like steady on. Of course, it doesn't help that I'm inside, so I'm keeping a little quieter so I don't disturb anybody. It's different when I'm outside. In the workshop, I can be as loud as I want. I can jam to the music. Different things. When I'm inside, I gotta, be respectful. Not that I have to. I want to. But yeah, that's this week's check-in. That's what's going on. Things are definitely progressing for me. Definitely moving forward. Something I didn't really talk about too much is a little over a week ago, maybe two. I'd had a friend, that I interacted with online, and even though it would have been a long distance thing, because they live down in Florida and I live here in Jersey, they said they genuinely wanted to make a go of things, but then after we started to plan, like we were supposed to take a spring break trip together. I was going to go down there to Florida, because I know people down there. I have relatives and friends, and to me that made more sense, because if something went wrong while we were together, I would have people to go to down there, but if she had come up here, where would she get? You know what I mean? Plus, I don't think she was too keen on coming up here. Anywho, but again, as time progressed, we just mutually agreed, like, because of the distance and the differences between our lifestyles, it was amicable. We weren't angry at each other, but we realized it wasn't going to work. And again, same thing. I got offered the friendship thing, and I don't do that. I've learned, and it's nothing against, the people that offer it. It's not that I don't want to be friendly. It's not, that whole animosity for the rejection. It's actually quite the opposite. It's, if you rejected me, eventually you're going to get tired of me, showing up. And on the flip side of that, I also don't want to get used like my ex used me. I was always there, absorbing her bad stuff, but it was never reciprocated. And that's not just like an emotional or psychological level, that's like even physically. Like, I used to make sometimes 2 to 3 trips a day. I don't know how well geographic area, but if you ever want to look it up, I would go from Millville to Pennsville. That's a good 45 minute to an hour ride. And I would do that sometimes 2 to 3 times a day to see her. I did it at least, bare minimum, when I was, at the very least, I was doing it 3 times a week, at the least. And when I was still working before the heart attack, it was even more than that, because where I worked was right in the middle between the two. Well, not right in the middle, kind of closer to her than me, but still, it was close enough to say in the middle. That made things easier. And it was always me driving, but then, again, when my health went and I had to surrender my license, when it was her turn to drive, she only had to do it once a week. And that was too much for her. She complained all the time. Same thing, if I needed somebody, she didn't have to show up. But if she needed somebody, I better show up or I was getting in trouble. Same thing, if I make a decision that would affect both of us, if I did it without her, I got punished for it. Yet I was supposed to suck it up when she did it. Again, that was not a relationship, and that's not what I'm looking for. And that's why I don't do the friend zone, because that's how stuff like that happens. Because they get the benefits of my personality and the things that I offer, but no responsibility for it. And I've done enough of that in my life, and I'm not doing it anymore. So again, people can think what they want, and they can say, I'm being cold-hearted or stubborn for that, but it's just a decision that I made, based on the experiences I've been through. Don't get me wrong, I can be friends with women, but it has to be friends. It can't be something that goes from a rejection to a friendship, because again, it changes the dynamic. And that's how people get used. And I'm not down for that anymore. I am perfectly okay with being single for the rest of my life, and I'm pretty sure that's not going to happen. But right now, my focus is on establishing myself. Through the church, I have to do the classes, I have to focus and pay attention, and then once that's done, I'm sure God will bring me what He has for me, and it's going to be better than I could have even imagined, and I know that. But again, patience. I'm kind of in that mentality now anyway, that that was kind of the point. That's what got me in trouble, was I didn't like being alone. I didn't like the thought of being alone. And ironically, she left me. She bailed on me so many times, ghosted me so many times. And it got longer and longer each time, that finally it's like, I'm not scared of being alone anymore, because now I'm used to it. That was, again, the mistake that was made. That's why I realized it was long past due to let it go. So, just a note to people out there, that are trying to have a real relationship. Communicate with one another. Again, be accountable. If there's not accountability, that means there's no intention to change, and that means there's no respect. And no respect, that's not a relationship. That's exploitation. There's no other way to cut that. So be careful with that. And again, as I have experiences, I build my discernment, and I see those things better, and I learn from my mistakes, and I do my best not to repeat them. Anyway, this has gone on pretty long, longer than I intended. But again, I wanted to give the update and share a few thoughts and ideas. And as I have more, I'll pop one more. But as usual, take care of yourselves. Try and help take care of each other where you can. See you in the next one.